Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Mike Wu from the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force's Office for Installations, Environment, and Energy. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes to let people jump on, and then we'll begin momentarily. All right, everybody, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this virtual industry day for Energy Resilience Request for Information. My name is Michael Wu. I'm Special Assistant to the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Installations, Environment, and Energy. Very excited to have you all here. Today we'll be hearing from Mr. Mark Correll, the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Environment, Safety, and Infrastructure. Mr. Correll will be providing background and context for the Air Force's energy assurance initiatives, including the Resilient Energy Demonstration Initiative, which issued the Beale RFI, along with the Defense Logistics Agency. And we're going to welcome Ms. Andrea Kincaid and Mr. Larry Kratos, both of whom are branch chiefs and contract officers for the Defense Logistics Agency Energy. They'll be directly addressing the fund requirements and other details relating to the Beale Air Force Base request information. I want to make a couple notes on format and presentation. This is the first time we're doing something on Google Hangout and YouTube. So we're working on format and would appreciate your suggestions to do that. We'll be taking questions on the YouTube comment below. In order to post on that YouTube comment channel, you'll need a YouTube or Gmail account. So if you don't have one, you can create one and be able to. We'll also be taking written questions through virtualindustryday@gmail.com. And if you submitted questions through the Google form by which you registered for this industry day, we'll be able to address those as well. So we'll try to get to as many questions as we can live on this engagement, but please consider any questions that we answer live as a part of this engagement as preliminary. We will address all of those with final written responses. And any questions that we take for the record or we cannot get to this afternoon, we will also address in written form. All of those answers will be posted to FedBizOps at the same place that the RFI is. And if you have any trouble finding that link, we can provide it. So please just reach out and let us know. So first up, we're going to have Mr. Correll, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Environment, Safety, and Infrastructure for the Air Force. Sir? All right. I'm not.
to meet very small needs on our installation for fairly short periods of time. So we would have an outage for 2 days to 2 weeks, and as a result, then we would use a generator to keep ourselves going. Under this new construct where the grid is out, we have to look at much longer time frames, and what I've put out in the past is 3 to 6 months. There's nothing scientific about that. It's just intended to let folks think differently, and you'll see more of that as I go through these slides, what I want us to think differently about. What you can live with for 2 days is not something you can live with for 6 months, and it changes your viewpoint. So as you look at the slide you're seeing now, when we say it's critical to our mission, most folks think of the Air Force and they think of airplanes, but I'd like to give you a little different thought process we have, and I use a remotely piloted aircraft as an example. So remotely piloted aircraft are dependent upon a number of different factors in order for the mission to occur. We call that a mission thread, and that's what you're seeing here is a basic mission thread on the screen. If you start on the right-hand side, that's where we have an RPA in Southwest Asia taking off from an airfield. There's got to be power at that airfield for lights, for the launch of that RPA so that it can go do its mission and can recover. So if I don't have power there, no mission occurs. But if I do have power there, I still have to get an uplink to a satellite that downlinks to, in this case, a downlink site in Europe. Once again, I've got to have that capability in Europe. And if there's no power at that site in Europe, then the mission in Afghanistan, whether they have power or not, doesn't go. But that's not enough. If I move farther left across the screen and I look at the east coast of the United States, now I've got a data center. The data center is compiling all of the data that's coming in from that satellite uplink and downlink. And if they don't have the power and energy they need to do their mission, that RPA mission in Afghanistan or wherever it is doesn't fly. And then if you go all the way to the left-hand side of the screen, what you're seeing is that's where the RPA operators are. They're in the western part of the United States, and if they don't have the power necessary to do what their mission requires, then that RPA mission doesn't fly. Anywhere in that mission thread, if we break the energy link, we're unable to accomplish the mission. And consequently, we've got to come up with better ways than 2 days to 2 week weather outages to be able to handle ensuring that our entire link is covered so that our mission can continue. So understanding what our mission is, what is the change in how we're thinking in the Air Force? Well, in the past, we looked at things essentially in 2 different ways. One, we wanted to meet goals, reduce cost or reduce demand, increase the amount of renewable energy, whatever it might be, and we wanted to cut our costs. And those were kind of siloed approaches. We had some projects that did one and some projects that did others. Now where we're headed is to a more holistic approach. And you're going to hear that word more than once as we talk today, because that's where we're headed with the READY initiative, is a holistic look. When we say holistic, what that means is we've got to have all of the things you see on the screen. First and foremost, the new piece we talk about is resiliency. So what do we mean by resiliency? It means that I have to have multiple ways to get power to all of the mission threads that I need so that our mission can continue at all times. The second thing is we still care about cost. Now we care about it a little bit differently. We used to say we want to save money and that's our focus. Now what we say is it needs to be cost effective. That means in some cases we could have cost parity, but if I get resiliency out of the deal, that's still a cost effective solution for us. So it's a different thought process. And finally, we're looking for cleaner energy with a preference for renewable energy. As we think about resilience and the ability to have power at all times, we know that renewable energy, notwithstanding its storage issues and its intermittency issues, is still going to be a fuel source that's available at all time, while others, while they're clean, and we may go for them, are not. We still have to have a fuel source. If we can get to the sweet spot, that center piece that you see on the slide, that's ideal. If we can't, the Air Force position now is I need at least 2 out of 3. Around the edges of this slide, what you see are varying different ways that we've accomplished in the past. And what you're going to see is we're still going to do the things we've done in the past. You will still see us do utility rate negotiations so that we can save money, even though that doesn't get us any resiliency. At the same time, we'll continue to use our enhanced use lease, our power purchase agreements, our direct contract authority projects to get ourselves resilience as well. So it won't just be a case of we only have to have these one kinds of projects. We'll still use all the tools that we have in the tool bag. And so that's what we mean when we say a more holistic approach, is to look at all 3 of these pieces at one time and move that direction with all the things we do in the Air Force. So as I move to the next slide, if you say, okay, well, I understand now what your mission is, and I kind of get where you're going with the holistic approach, then what's your plan of attack? What's the way you're going to make that happen? So it hadn't come up on the screen yet, but essentially I've got 3 lines of effort. So the first line of effort is, if you think about moving in a holistic direction, is you've got to figure out what exactly it is that you need. What's most important to you? So on this slide, what you're seeing now is the first thing we have to do is assess our vulnerabilities. That means we have to sit down with our mission partners and figure out exactly what it is, those mission threads that I talked about. What is it we have to do in order to get that mission to go? And so as we move forward, we're working on decomposing and doing an analysis on at least 2 end-to-end mission threads as part of our initiatives to move forward, not specifically in what we're talking about today, but larger scale. Once you've determined what that requirement is, then you've got to have that resilient power. So when you move to that second column and we talk about scaled readiness, essentially what that boils down to is distributed generation. And so the main way we've looked at this is we've established the Office of Energy Assurance, which its intent is to bring online or put into the pipeline 10 large scale, by that I mean 10 megawatt or greater, distributed generation projects that are third-party financed, on or near installation, dedicated or dedicatable to the installation's mission, and we will do that through our Office of Energy Initiatives. The third piece is the one you're most interested in today, and that's modernized resiliency. So if you understand that we know our crucial mission, we've built that mission thread, and I've got some distributed generation to help ensure that that mission goes. Now what I've got to do is be able to manage that power. And so we have to have a methodology, whether that's a smart grid, typically what you would expect, but some way or another that we can manage the power when we're off the grid, push the power where we need it, when we need it. It's got to be smart enough that I don't have to have lots of labor in order to make that go. And it needs to be cyber secure because, as I mentioned at the beginning, the new threats that we see are, in addition to weather, are physical and cyber is the one that concerns us the most. So how are we going to do that? We want to do that with 2 smart, cyber secure, energy resilience demonstration projects, and that's where READY comes from. And the one of those 2 that we'll talk about today is the one at Beale. So I'm going to move to my next slide, which is going to kind of talk to you about, so you've heard now, here's what we think the threat is, here's why it's important to us from a mission standpoint, here's the lines of effort that we're going to put into play to make that happen. So at the end of the game, what are you looking for? What is this going to look like when you're finished? And so what I'd like to do is show you what I would call is the base of the future. And one of the things that we'll have to do in the base of the future, which is going to show up on your screen here hopefully in a minute, there we go, is we've got to do a couple of different things. First is define what are our critical loads. Critical loads are those things that we absolutely must have all the time in order to do our mission. Second is our adjustable or our scalable loads. What are the loads that we can move, that we can adjust on and off over a long period of time? Examples I give of adjustable loads would be, if you think about it, for 3 to 6 months, if you're going to be out of power that long, you may turn the air conditioning off in office buildings and leave it on in areas where you have servers. Maybe more specifically, I may need a capability to turn on the power to the dining facility for 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours at night so I can feed people and then turn it off the rest of the time, but I don't have to have it 24/7. And then third are the sheddable loads, where we say we can do without that load indefinitely. So how are we going to do that in the base of the future? In the top left, you see utility connected power. The grid's not going to go away. We're going to continue to depend on that. That's not part of our construct to ever be completely divorced from it. But in the lower left, in the green circle, you see the distributed generation, where we will have on or near our installation sufficient power to support our critical and adjustable loads. And then we will have the capability to move that power and control that power throughout our installation so that we can meet our mission needs. So that kind of gives you an overview of where we're going as an Air Force overall. So now let's talk a little bit about what's our plan for READY as it applies to Beale Air Force Base. So at Beale Air Force Base, what we're going to do is create an energy resilience plan. And we're going to build on that framework to export that idea to other installations. And so our plan has been, and what we have put together is a year-long execution strategy that we actually just started last December, and that's what Michael Wu's been working on. But as you can see on the chart, we're already into phase 3 of that. And our deliverables, the piece you're here to hear about today is, one, we want an energy resilient project entering into procurement by the end of 2016. And that might be a demonstration scale project for a portion of Beale or more. We need a comprehensive energy assurance plan for ensuring Beale's ability to power its critical missions. This could be a set of projects that integrates authorities and resources to deliver some energy resilient systems that you've put together. And we're going to need a framework that's going to facilitate creation of these projects across the Air Force enterprise. Now, we recognize that that's not all going to be done by December of 16. That's just going to be a starting position, but that's what our plan is and the timeline that we're on and what you'll be up against as we work through this RFI. So the last main chart I want to show you is what Beale Air Force Base looks like, and one of the things that, why did we pick Beale and what's going on at Beale Air Force Base. So let's start with why Beale. Well, first, Beale has several critical missions that I'll talk about in a minute here that require uninterrupted access to electricity. Second thing we looked at is that California's policy and regulatory environment encourages proliferation of distributed energy resources. We believe there's going to be significant opportunities for partnerships with both the public and the private sectors that could make these projects more cost effective. And probably one of the things that's most crucial when we're looking around is the base staff and the leadership at that installation is committed to and interested in what we're doing, because without their support, we're not going to make that happen. Just quickly, I'll talk about a couple of the missions that you see there and why we said these were so critical and why we picked Beale. So they've got at least 3 main missions. One is up there, it says on the flight line on the top left there, that's the 9th Reconnaissance Wing. It's the host of Beale Air Force Base, so they own the base. They're responsible for providing national and theater command authorities with high quality, reliable, high altitude reconnaissance. So you can see there that in particular they fly the RQ-4 Global Hawk all over the world to provide that surveillance and reconnaissance for our defense. The second that you see in the bottom there where it says Intelligence Campus, that's the 548th Intelligence Surveillance and Reconnaissance Group. They operate and maintain distributed ground sites as part of our common ground system across the Air Force. And essentially what they do is they provide for processing and exploiting different forms of intelligence that we gather from a number of different platforms that we get intelligence. And then the last one that you see there is the 7th Space Warning Wing. That's PAVE-PAWS at the top. And the PAVE-PAWS radar is part of our early warning radar system, and its primary purpose is for missile warning, detection, and defense. And that system's got some very unique power requirements with a 2 to 3 megawatt pulse in addition to its regular load. And so between those 3, we think we've got great opportunities for you to take a look at different ways that you can provide energy resilience for us at Beale Air Force Base. Now, we're going to be interested in solutions that can make one or more of those missions resilient from an energy perspective, including an enhanced distribution network, which is currently outdated, and making the individual campuses that you're looking at a little more self-sufficient. So let me wrap up by saying, what are the next steps that we'll be looking at? We hope that the RFI that we're putting out now is going to help us gauge industry's interest and capabilities to provide the kinds of outcomes that I've described in this briefing. We think it's important for Beale Air Force Base because Beale's got, some very critical missions, as I just went over for you. But at the same time, it's a model and it's a demonstration project, and our expectation is that once we're finished at Beale, this is going to become the way we go for many more of our installations and many more of the mission threads that we'll put together. We hope that the responses that you're going to give us to this RFI are going to help us lay the foundation to do this at our most critical locations across the Air Force. And the way we will do that, and I mentioned it briefly before, is the vehicle will be the Office of Energy Assurance. So I think that about does it in terms of context for the Air Force. I think the responses, as you'll see, are going to be due about the 15th of July. I can tell you we're excited and we're looking forward to the kinds of creative thought and methodologies that you're going to bring to the table to help us do a better job of meeting our Air Force mission. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Really appreciated that context. What we're going to do now is turn it over to our partners at the Defense Logistics Agency. I mentioned Larry Freitas and Andrea Kincaid are both here. They have been essential partners for us in engagement with industry on energy issues. And so we're really happy to have them here. They issued the RFI onto FedBizOps on our behalf and are working closely with us to bring this to fruition. So I'm going to turn it over to them now.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mike. And my name is Andrea, and I, along with my colleagues Larry Freitas, Chris Archer, and Brandy Henson, represent the acquisition team from DLA Energy that is supporting this exciting and promising endeavor for the Air Force. The RFI represents a unique challenge that many facilities face, and we hope that with industry's assistance, we gain the information necessary to map a replicable strategy towards future resiliency efforts, not only at Beale Air Force Base, as well as other Air Force installations, but also for DoD activities to hopefully utilize for similar requirements. In full disclosure, I remind you that this is an RFI and that the responses are not proposals, and the information contained is being used for market research purposes only. The submission of a response does not bind DLA Energy nor the Air Force to any further action. The information received is going to be safeguarded adequately from unauthorized disclosure. I'm going to talk a little bit about the intent of the RFI, but you've heard Mr. Correll with the overarching theme of what the Air Force is looking at within their resiliency efforts. The intent is to gain as much information necessary to prepare an acquisition strategy that will encompass a comprehensive energy resiliency approach for Beale Air Force Base specifically. The Air Force is focused on achieving affordable, clean, and resilient power. In the RFI, we've provided specific information about the base's current mission, energy consumption, current infrastructure, and potential future requirements to aid in the preparation of responses. However, we realize that this information is not comprehensive. So in your responses, we are asking that if there are things that have been not identified, that you let us know what else would be needed in order to achieve a maximum, aggressive RFP structure that could be utilized by industry. We envision that the responses that will be received will provide a holistic approach to maintain the energy needs of the base that has an average energy demand of approximately 14 megawatts, excuse me, with a peak demand of 15 megawatts to include the ability to sustain those loads for a specific duration. Now Larry is going to discuss the actual RFI content response structure.
RFI and specific questions the government is seeking answers. We understand that entities like to promote themselves, and through experience have found they provide information that isn't particularly useful in response to the RFI, and it ends up causing delays in the development of any potential strategy. Please respond to the questions being asked. That would be very helpful. To aid in the preparation of your response, we have outlined again the specific information we are expecting to receive. As to not regurgitate any of this information, we offer the following recommendations. For review expediency, we would appreciate that any submittal, being the first page, the Appendix A that was attached to the RFI, and the additional responses to questions can follow the appendix. We ask that your response be detailed and complete to the questions being posed. While attempting to be detailed in your response, please remember that the RFI which includes it's important to note that responsibility is by July 15th. No offenses, email submissions are acceptable. Take note that we are then we respect we will not accept any personal of your skills. Any questions received on the RFI will be answered through the person prepared to adopt it. Please monitor that the presentation seen today will also be posted to the website. Any questions will be posted the event itself will be posted to YouTube to make sure you visit the file. However, any questions with the official position. We appreciate your tuning in at the time and the time will take on to the problem. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Beale AFB. We'll socialize the questions.
All right, thank you, Andrea and Larry. That was really helpful as well. Again, if you have questions or comments, we'd welcome them in the YouTube comments folder or in or you can email them to virtualindustryday@gmail.com. We have quite a few questions actually already, and a great deal of them go to you, sir, Mr. Correll. So the first question is, how do you plan to integrate cybersecurity into your energy resilience modeling? Is that a priority?
Let me start by saying I'm seeing on the screen that there are a number of issues with hearing sound, and I'm talking to the computer right into the microphone, so I'll do my best to try to make sure you can hear me. But with regard to cybersecurity, yeah, absolutely. So as I went through this, what I was saying is we need this to be a cyber secure. Why? Because that's the new threat. Certainly a physical threat's a big deal, and weather's always been, but cybersecurity is crucial to it. Exactly how much? That's something we're looking for you. For us, frankly, more is better. At the end of the day, we're going to have to put it through our Department of Defense cyber folks to make sure that it all is runnable on our land. But what are we looking for? We're looking for a capability that is resistant to the same kind of cyber attack that will have taken the grid down. So the level of strength I'm looking for is something took the grid down. If ours is online, I don't want that same thing to take ours down. So yes, cyber will be important.
All right, thanks, sir. We also have a couple questions on how this effort will be managed going forward. I think one thing we'd like to address is, where will this effort sit going forward within the Air Force corporate structure?
Thanks. So I mentioned in my brief the Office of Energy Assurance. So we stood up the Office of Energy Assurance, co-located with the Army's Office of Energy Initiative. So for those of you who are familiar with OEI in the Army, we're right there with them next door. A little bit different than the Army. What we did is we incorporated both manpower and resources to assure that when we're doing distributed generation, and because we want a holistic approach, that READY would be there as well. So we'll operate our READY initiative at the same time and in the same place that we're operating the Office of Energy Assurance. And so that will be the location that you'll want to go to get more information and work with as we get ready to award projects and move forward with regard to READY and any other actions we take in modernizing our system.
I think this is probably a question for DLA, but for technical information on Beale's energy infrastructure and requirements, things like total kilowatt hour demand or thermal load or things like that, there's a question about how that information will be provided, or if it will be provided as a part of the RFI process, or in, going into a solicitation process. I don't know if you guys can address that.
Currently, of the more comprehensive usage data regarding utilities, fuel, that will be published in an RFP for future release, potentially. And that will be provided, and it will be password protected. So you will have to request a specific password due to the security nature of the information. That information is expected to be provided during the RFP process.
Great, thanks, Andrea. And I'd just like to point out as well, one of the questions in the RFI asks what information is not provided by the RFI that you need as a member of the industry or as a potential partner to respond effectively to a request for proposal. So, one of the reasons for issuing an RFI is to gather as much information about industry interest and capabilities, and also strengthen future solicitations. So we're thinking about that explicitly in this process, and we'd welcome feedback on what has, in other projects that you've been in, been most effective to helping scope and lay out your projects. Mr. Correll, another question for you. Are you interested in, we had quite a number of questions on specific technologies, be them battery storage technologies or hydrogen fuel cells or things like that. Are you interested in specific technologies like those I just mentioned?
Thanks. So bottom line is we're taking a technology agnostic approach to this. So one of the things I see when I travel around, I get a lot is individual organizations that want to talk to me about specific technologies. If you don't get tired of hearing any word, you'll get tired of hearing holistic. So holistic is what we're after here. So I'm not interested in a particular technology, no matter what it is. I'm interested in a holistic approach that incorporates whatever the right technology is that provides us that resilient, clean, cost-effective power that we need so that we can do our mission. Whichever one that happens to be, that's the one we're interested in. So I think you ought to consider yourselves as having an open field to use whatever you think would be the best process to help us meet the goals that I laid out when I talked.
Thanks, sir. And there are similar questions and probably unsurprising questions on where the funding for this effort will come from, where the funding from READY projects or energy resilience projects will come from. Wondering if you could address at least broadly and programmatically where you imagine that'll come from within the Air Force.
Thanks. So in the long haul, because as I mentioned, this is going to be a model for what we hope is going to be a large number of installations and a large number of missions. You've seen the budgets, you know where we are. We're going to end up relying heavily on third-party financing, which means we're going to have to take authorities like enhanced use lease, where we're going to give up property in exchange for something, power purchase agreements to get us long-term pricing, and instead of taking cash, we may use that to get something more of a system that we need on our installation. So for the long haul, I think what we're going to see is we're going to need you to think about how would you do this in a third-party financed environment. For Beale itself, we're going to have more opportunity for indirect investment, and I've said in other forums that some level of direct investment will come from the Air Force, but to the extent that you're able to incorporate third-party financing using the authorities we have today, I think that is going to be more attractive to the Air Force as we expand beyond Beale and onto other Air Force installations.
One last question, if I could impose on your time. We have another question about, where we're going to be concentrating our focus, where the Air Force will be looking to do these projects in the future, and as we scale up, where are we anticipating doing similar efforts, be they RFIs or requests for proposals. So I wonder if you could address kind of our future plans on that.
I think that Beale is going to be our primary model. So from Beale, where we'll want to go is we'll want to take the lessons we learned, and then we're going to scale those to larger. So I don't know how Beale is going to work out. We may have folks come in and say, I want to take on all 3 campuses and integrate them. There may be that we may end up with just 1 campus. Whatever it is, ultimately we have to get to the picture that I showed of the base of the future, where all the critical loads, all the adjustable loads, and the ability to take shuttable and the rest of the loads on and off is where we'll need to go. And so I don't expect that we'll have any more demonstration initiatives, but once we've got the demonstration and our lessons learned, then we will scale those and start going forward with larger scale projects at our installations.
Thanks, sir. And we have a question on the YouTube channel from Devin Summers. Can Mr. Correll speak more to the pulse load of the paved pause system? How many times will the load be expected to spike? I'll take that one. This is a perfect sort of encapsulation of the approach that Ready took when it came to this RFI. What we wanted to do was lay out our mission requirements and ask for industry input as to how we would fulfill those mission requirements. There are some unique characteristics to the missions and load requirements at Beale, the paved pause radar site being an important one. What we would anticipate is that in a request for proposal or in a future solicitation, that kind of information, which may be increasingly sensitive or increasingly mission related, will have to address in a more formal way. So, and that will go similarly for the other critical missions at Beale or anywhere we do these kinds of energy resilience procurements. So it's a great question, and one that is obviously important for the response and our overall solution. But it's also one that we provided, I think, a fair amount of detail to help facilitate responses. So appreciate the question, though. So we have another question from YouTube on audio issues, and I apologize again for the audio issues that some folks are experiencing. But the question is, what's the process for posing questions in writing? And I wonder if DLA folks could address that. We can certainly take in more questions through virtualindustryday@gmail.com in the future, but DLA will also have has a formal process for taking in questions.
Should send it to on FedBizOps, there's the posting, and then within the RFI itself, there's a email address. There's an email. It's dlaenergy.ourteam@dla.mil. We will be taking questions via that email, as well as the questions from the industry day, and posting them to a comprehensive request for information fact sheet. And we will be posting that to FedBizOps for all interested parties to view, as well as the presentations that were given today. There will not be a transcript provided, but if you have specific questions, you can send them either to the DLA Energy mailbox or the Virtual Industry Day mailbox that Mike mentioned.
All right, thanks, Andrea. Okay, we have another question on small business considerations from Clement Johnson. Is the Air Force considering small business considerations? So I'll turn that over to DLA first.
That's a very good question, and one that's typically asked under these types of procurements. We are looking at it from a full and open competition, so any specific party is capable of potentially submitting a response to any future RFP. We have not evaluated the potential for specific set-asides as of yet. We envision that based on responses received from the RFI, that strategy will dictate which types of procurement processes will be utilized.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. That's helpful. You know, one of the things to note is within the RFI, we included a form that will help categorize your responses. If you have questions on that form, again, you know, I would reach out to the DLA team at their mailbox that Andrea identified, or you can again send emails to virtualindustryday@gmail.com that will eventually make it over to the DLA team. But one of the reasons we wanted to do that was to be able to identify, you know, different scopes of companies and different scopes of technology solution sets. So we'd welcome, you know, any and all responses to this request for information. All right, well, I think, you know, that exhausts the questions, or some of the questions that we've received both on the YouTube channel. We've received actually far more questions on the in the Google form, but we're going to address those in writing, as Andrea mentioned, through their process, and that again will be on FedBizOps. So on Friday. Very well. So with that, I really appreciate everybody participating, and again apologize for some of the sound issues we experienced, but I hope you had an opportunity to hear where the Air Force is going, the direction we're going from our energy assurance initiatives. I'd like to thank our presenters, Mr. Mark Correll, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Environment, Safety, and Infrastructure, and Andrea Kincaid and Larry Freitas from the Defense Logistics Agency Energy, and everybody for joining us today. We really look forward to continuing our mission-driven approach to our energy investments, and we think that industry is a critical part of that. So we look forward to working together even more closely, and thank you very much again for joining.